everyone for joining us, and thank you to our guests. We appreciate your time and your commitment to the town. We'll get started by welcoming you all. I will read the disclaimer here. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GL Chapter 730A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Westborough Economic Development Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Westborough's website at www.town.westborough.ma.us. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so in the following manner. Westborough TV. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of Westborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. So. Great. Well, once again, welcome and thank you for everyone's attendance. Welcome to our guests. I will start with a vote and approval of the minutes from April 1st, 2021. We'll do that with a roll call. And I think just to keep it straight, moving along, we'll try to do it in somewhat alphabetical order. So I'll make a motion to approve the minutes, and maybe Todd.
Second it.
Okay. And we'll do a roll call from there.
Edinburgh, yes.
Alexander, yes.
Williams, yes.
Townsend, yes.
Sorry, yes.
Leonardo, yes.
Steinberg, yes.
Yes.
Sullivan, yes. Did I hear Jim Robbins?
Yes, I voted yes.
Oh, great. Okay, so I think that's everyone. Okay, great. Thank you. So we'll move to the first item on the agenda. I'll welcome Chris Egan, who doesn't need to be introduced. I think he must know everyone. But if you don't know Chris Egan, he's the president of Caruth Capital and a leader in the town of Westborough. Certainly, has a significant investment and is a real advocate for the town. Chris is going to begin with an update on his plans at 4400 Computer Drive.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Bonnie. Zach, if I can ask you for the first slide, please. We're here to talk about 4400 Computer Drive, which is located along basically 495 and Route 9 in that sector of town, kind of abuts Southborough. So if everyone understands it, it's kind of behind the Doubletree Hotel. So I think everyone knows where it is. It's the former Data General World headquarters. The building was built in 1978. It's been 55% vacant for over 8 years when EMC/Data General moved out. We've worked our fannies off to try to lease it up, and we haven't been able to do it. The property is just obsolete. I get calls every week for people who want to put solar panels on that roof, and we could possibly do that, but the roof would fall in on itself because that's how cheaply the building was built. So we're proposing a new development that will produce additional tax revenues from the town, not only for property values, but the user coming in is going to probably register over 800 automobiles in the town of Westborough, so the town can get the excise tax revenues from it. If we want to turn the slide, please, Zach. Thank you. That's the new development. They're going to be tearing down 668,000 square feet of 2-3-story office space and replacing it with about a 210,000 square foot warehouse last mile fulfillment center. It will have we'll be going down from 2,800 parking spaces down to about 1,200 parking, 1,300 parking spaces. So the number of parking spaces will go down dramatically. Can we turn to the next slide, please? Or is that just the last one, Zach? Okay. This is the presentation from the most recent planning board meeting. Turn the page.
Chris, this is actually from the April one. Do you want me to pull up the May one?
Oh, this one's good. No, I can do this one.
Okay.
That's probably better. So we're going to have an increase in motor excise tax. There'll be delivery vans. Currently, the property's renting out the back parking lot to a company called National Freight Industries, NFI. You might see their trucks around town. Currently, NFI does 260 tractor trailer entrances and exits from that property every day, almost to probably 6-7 days a week. The proponent coming in is probably only going to do 30 to 35 tractor trailer trucks a day, every day of the week. So a significant reduction. There'll be building permit fees, and the proponent is not going to ask for a TIF or any state funding, which is good. Next slide, please. The lighting will be upgraded significantly. Currently, the lighting, as it stands, kind of shadows over the property line. With new upgraded lighting, we're going to have dark sky standards. We're going to have no candle spillover, not only over the property line, but they won't spill into the wetland, which inconveniences the wildlife. Next slide. That's just showing that the lighting is going to be fine. Next slide. This is what the site's going to look like. Once again, no lighting spillover. The parking lot is actually going to be the parking lot's going to be reduced a little bit, so it's going to actually be moved further away from neighbors and the property line. Okay, next slide. So there was issues with the neighbors regarding sound, and the proponent's going to adhere to Mass State guidelines in terms of air pollution. The trucks, when they're at the loading docks, will be turned off and won't be idling. There's a 300 to 350 foot wide forest buffer between this property and the abutting residential neighborhood. There will be a significant reduction, as I mentioned earlier, in tractor trailer trucks from 260 down to 32. And there'll be sound absorbing and light blocking walls or fences within the park trucking area and park loading area to distance ourselves from the neighbors. So Creative Capital and the proponent is trying to be as reasonable as possible and work with the neighborhood grievances as best as possible. Next slide, please. Just to show you kind of like what it looks like today and what's it going to look like in the future. We're actually going to be bringing the truck traffic from being 570 feet away from the neighbors to 950 feet away in a significantly fewer trucks. So it's getting better. Go ahead, Dak. This is an example of the sound walls that are going to be built on the north side of the property, so the neighbors don't hear the trucks or see the truck lights. Next. So in terms of delivery vans and traffic, so significantly less traffic. In Data General's heyday and EMC's heyday, there are 2,800 cars going in and out of there at rush hour. So between 7:30 and 8:30 in the morning and between 4:30 and 6 o'clock at night. That is going to be totally changed around. The proponent has a highly programmed operation, so they're deliberately not going during peak hours. So the intersections weren't that clogged under EMC Data General, but they definitely won't have an issue now that the peak delivery time, the peak traffic times start at 9:50 a.m. and for the morning rush, and the afternoon rush is at 7:10 p.m. So, and also the proponent has agreed to do post occupancy traffic monitoring. So if there's a traffic problem, the regulatory board, the planning board will have an opportunity to help modify the site permit with the proponent. Thanks, Zach. Next slide. And this is just a little bit more traffic data. This is a good photo of what the intersection looks like. I want to make it clear to the committee that there's no town roads involved in this project. It's all state roads. Computer Drive, Research Drive, and Route 9 are all state roads, and that's where the traffic will be going in and out of. Next slide. This is just another example of how the existing versus proposed inbound peak hour site trips are reduced dramatically. Next slide. And this is the outbound is reduced significantly. Thank you, Zach. Next. And just another example of how traffic's going to be better. This chart's a little hard to understand, hard to see. It basically has the peak, those purple peaks show you when the proponent's going to be driving a lot of cars in and out of the property, and you can't see it because it's too small, but those times are not during the rush hour. Okay, Zach. There was a question about trash removal. The neighborhood is hearing one of the businesses on Computer Drive is making noise with their dumpster. This building hasn't made noise with their dumpster in 8 years because the building's been vacant. However, the proponent's going to screen their dumpster and surround it with a fence that will minimize the noise, and only tip the dumpster during normal working hours, not at night or the weekends or early in the morning, which some of the neighbors are complaining about. It's probably that hotel that's next to 2400 Computer Drive. Okay, next. And they're going to be, we were asked to reposition the building and relocate the parking fields. Topographically wise and program wise, that's impractical, if not impossible. Next. Public infrastructure. The proponent's going to contribute to a area-wide study. There's a lot of people on this side of town that are proponents for a life safety, fire, police type response building to be put over this side of town for emergency response. So hopefully they can come to terms with the town on that project. They're also going to support grant applications for federal and state funds for Westborough. Next. And as I mentioned before, 54% reduction in parking. Next, Zach. The stormwater management on that property is extremely well maintained. However, the state and the town have upgraded their stormwater runoff bylaws. And so the proponent's going to upgrade the quality of the stormwater runoff in that building. So it's going to be better for the environment and for flooding. There was a question about walking trails. It's kind of wet back there. There's privacy issues with the neighbors, and you really can't get to it. So the proponent doesn't really want to do walking trails. It's not practical. Next. Current zoning allows for significantly larger and taller building. Just want to, because of Cruth Capital got MEPA permits for over 1 million square feet in that property back in the Romney administration, we can actually build a significant large building there, over 1 million square feet. However, I think you'll agree with me, the highest and best use right now is to embrace the e-commerce economy, because if the town and the developers don't embrace e-commerce, they're going to go somewhere else. So next, Zach, sustainability. So the proponent's going to be moving to a fully electric fleet of vans over the next decade. So the building's going to be programmed to recharge all the Sprinter vans. The building will be solar ready, meaning when and if the proponent wants to put solar panels on the roof, they will do so, and I'm confident they'll do that in the next half a decade. There's a low impact development in terms of stormwater, and the landscaping is going to significantly be upgraded in terms of quality. Next. And thank you. With that, Bonnie, should I go into, Madam Chairman, should I go into 1400 West Park Drive, or do you want to take questions?
I think we can probably move right along unless anyone, it may make sense to have any questions be followed up after the meeting with you.
Sounds great. Everyone has my email address. If not, you can just send them to the chair and she will forward them to me.
Okay, but we appreciate the update. Thank you.
Hopefully we can get through the planning board soon. I know they've been working with us closely, and it's just some neighbor issues that we're working through in peer review. With that, we're going to turn to 1400 West Park Drive. This is in Westborough Office Park, which is, if you're familiar with the Olympus building that just got built, that's Westborough Office Park. We've been approached by partners, Mass General Brigham, to sell them a piece of land for them to build a 3-story medical medical building. It will not be emergency room type facility. It won't be overnight stay. It'll just for people to get MRIs, do day surgeries, or see their general practitioner. This is kind of a schematic plan that's been submitted. I think we can go to the next slide, Zach. This is a presentation that the Mass General Brigham has done for Westborough back on May 4th. I'll just go through it quickly. As you can see, it's a pretty good looking building. 3 stories. Let's turn the page. That's again looking down at it. The site in the middle of that rectangle with the dirt, looks like brown, that's the Olympus site. So it's a little down West Park Drive from the Olympus site. As you can see, some people who did the Olympus permitting with us is on the call. There's that green strip in the middle. That's the Olympus expansion site. That site will not be impacted at all. So Olympus still has the right to expand, and knock on wood, Olympus will expand hopefully in the next 3 years. Next slide, please. So in terms of the zoning, just simply put, they're going to adhere to all the zoning and not ask for any changes to the bylaws or a waiver or anything like that on their 9.4 acre site. So it should all be as of right, which is great. Our zoning is lining up to what the users want. So it's making for a good symbiotic relationship. Next. In terms of healthcare benefits, Partners is saying that they have over 40,000 existing Mass General patients living in the Westborough area. And so they're building this facility. They're building another one in Woburn also to get out into where their clients are, instead of the clients having to drive into Boston and having the doctors have to live close to Boston, that this is more affordable for their doctors to buy more affordable houses away from Boston. And it allows people like us to get Boston quality healthcare without having to fight the turnpike. And this is just a kind of a little site orientation. The building's going to be in the kind of the middle of the lot, and there'll be parking on either side of the property. Next. Just a little bit more in terms of proposed conditions. The building's going to be about 62,000 feet, 315 parking spaces. The landscaping is going to be really nice. I've seen it. Traffic generation overall development fits within the Westborough Business Park's master plan. So the current traffic plans we have on site accommodate this growth. Next. They're actually incorporating low impact design. They're doing the whole solar thing on the parking lot. They're using geothermal cooling and heating. So they've already drilled a well. So they're going to be using the earth as a big heat sink, which is kind of neat. I don't know of a building in town that's done that yet. So we're really interested to see how it works out. Next. Here's just referencing the solar canopies that are going to be on the site. Next. And as I mentioned, there'll be kind of a landscape / public realm where they are going to encourage their patients to walk around the building in a beautiful kind of landscaped way to get some exercise, some fresh air. We will be tying those paths into our Westborough Office Park trails. And if you ever have time to do a little bit of hiking on the weekend or during the day, we're improving the trails every month, making them wider, making them safer. It's a really nice trail facility up there. Next. It just shows you how their trails are going to connect with our trails. All right, next. Community benefits, they're talking about integrated healthcare for Westborough. They're not asking for a TIF. In fact, they're doing a pilot, which is called a pilot payment in lieu of taxes. Some nonprofits agree to do that for communities, and that's going to be beneficial to the town. Not to mention the jobs and the fact that it's not competing with other office buildings in Westborough, which is nice. Next. All right, so the timeline, they're hoping to begin construction in August, assuming the permitting authorities can get all their questions answered in a timely fashion. So I know Partners is really focused on this. The president of of this project who was actually on the planning board call, which shows a level of commitment that I typically don't see from major companies. So they're really focused. And they're feeling welcomed by the town too, quite frankly. So they told me that. Next.
That's it, Chris, I think.
Okay. All right, Bonnie, hope I didn't take up too much time.
No, that's great. It actually gives us a little bit more time for the local real estate market, and which I know your team is going to continue with, Chris. So I don't know if you want to open up that discussion and bring in Brian Hunt and Bob McGuire from JLL.
Great. I'll introduce Brian Hunt, the Vice President of Cruth Capital, and he's going to work with our brokers team from JLL, Bob McGuire. I'll turn it over to you, Brian.
Hello, everybody. Hope everyone's having a nice day. I think I've met all of you at one point or another, at least most of you. So, yeah, we're going to try to not take up too much of your time with this, and I'm not going to bore you with a lot of statistics, but what we're going to do is sort of break this up into two pieces. I'm going to give you the sort of Cruth Capital perspective on what we're seeing in Westborough at our properties. And then when I'm finished, I'm going to open it up to Bob McGuire, who lists a lot of our properties in Westborough, and he's going to give you the broader sense of a couple of the suburban markets. And he's going to have some nice fancy slides and things. I'm going to skip the slide and just keep it simple from Cruth perspective. So Chris introduced me already, but just briefly, I handle the property management and specifically the leasing and marketing for the company. And, you know, we've seen obviously a pretty big dip since COVID and what's going on, activities down, a lot of indecision with tenants. They're not quite sure what they want to do. And yet other tenants are, you know, only looking at short-term leases. We've seen tenants leave the market completely. We've seen other tenants sort of just hunkering down and taking a wait and see approach. I'll give you a little bit of a understanding of with some, I promise to not give you too many statistics. I'm going to give you a few. We measure sort of transactions. So that means leases signed, and this is specific to Westborough. And I'm sorry, specific to our whole portfolio, not Westborough, but Westborough kind of runs some similar percentages. Using 2019 as a benchmark, pre-COVID, in 2020, our transactions were down 32% over 2019. And in 2021, projected out based on first 4 months of data, it's down 20%. Another metric we use is the square footage leased in a calendar year. In 2020, it was down 41% over 2019, and in 2021, it's down 32%. So just taking those two statistics for a minute to kind of give you some color on it, it seems to show a trend where we took a big hit in 2020, and it's, even though we're still down for 2021, it seems to be coming back a little. Unfortunately, it's a little bit misleading, and the next four categories I show you is going to kind of point that out. Average square footage of a lease signed, we look at that sort of what size deals that we're signing, are they big deals or small deals? That was down 14% in 2020, and it's now down 22% in 2021. The next metric was the average lease term. You know, how long are these tenants signing up for, these long-term deals or short-term deals? In 2020, we saw no change. It was still about a 4-year lease was the average. And in 2021, it's down 30%. We're down to now under 3 years. So about 33 months has been the average lease. Rents, the big number we all care about in this business, only saw about a 5% decreases in rents in 2020, but so far in 2021, it's down 15%. So that's trending in the wrong direction. And then all these come to the final statistic, which is what matters in the end, is revenue, net revenue generated from lease transactions. We look at, you know, what do we get for rent? What do we have to pay for tenant improvement costs, legal fees, brokerage commissions, and come up with a net rent, what the landlord walks away with. That revenue was down 38% in 2020, and projecting out to be down 44% in 2021. So I guess in a synopsis, what does that all mean? I think it means we're doing shorter term leases for smaller square footages at lower rents. So sort of all not the types of things commercial landlords would want to see. As far as specifics to the market, this is kind of the last piece of my presentation, and I'll turn it over to Bob McGuire. I took 4 or 5 of our tenants and that departed our portfolio in the last year since COVID anyway, and I picked them because I think they're kind of microcosms of what's going on in the larger market. The first one on the list is Clear Result, and Zach and I spoke a little bit about this tenant earlier today. So this is a tenant that's been with us for 20 years. They started out at 40 Washington Street. We expanded them, grew them from a 15,000 square foot tenant up to a 70,000 square foot tenant by moving them to 50 Washington Street and then expanding them at that building. Great relationship. We started a lease negotiation with them to renew prior to COVID, and they were going to renew for 5 years. That then turned into a 3-year term for half the square footage. Then it turned into a 1-year term. And just last week, they told us they're just going to go virtual. So they're not going to renew, they're going to leave. And I won't get into my theories on what that might mean for them. I mean, I'll talk about that a little bit at the end of this, but that's an example of one thing that's happening where tenants are just saying, hey, look, I'm not in the space now. My lease is expiring in June. We can't justify staying and not being in the space, so we're just going to move out. We're not going anywhere. We're not going to a new space. We're just going to kind of play it by ear and see what happens and continue to work remotely. Another tenant who's in Framingham, a large tenant of ours called International Data Corporation, they moved out of 128,000 square feet. They actually started this before COVID, this process of looking to possibly move to what they saw as a better market. So they moved from Framingham to 128, which they thought was an upgraded market. And I think most people think that. They effectively went from 128,000 feet down to 100,000 feet, and they moved into a space up for sublease at a significantly discounted rent. I use them as an example. COVID played a small part in it, but this is another phenomena that's going on where tenants are saying, hey, I'm in the suburbs, I can move closer to Boston. Maybe I downsize my workforce, I move closer to Boston, and it used to cost $40 a foot for rent in that market, and I can get a space now for $28 a foot, which might be similar to what I was paying in Framingham. So we're seeing a shuffling around with people seeing an opportunity to move and sort of upgrade. And then the next, another tenant, Jensen Hughes, moved from our building at 1661 Worcester Road. They've been our tenant for almost 20 years. And they stayed in Westborough. They downsized and moved to 11,000 square feet in another building. Not one of our buildings, but they cited, again, we're not there. We probably would have renewed because we didn't want to deal with the hassle of having to, move all our stuff out, the disruption. But they said, since we're not there, we can just basically give the movers the address, tell them to show up there, have the new landlord build out our new space, and just show up there when the pandemic's over. So, they may have moved anyway, but it's sort of, it creates an opportunity for the tenant to really look at their real estate needs and find another way to do things. And that's maybe one of the advantages you have as a landlord is sort of the captive audience. If they're in your building already, it's a lot easier for them to stay than to pick up and move. But in this environment, maybe we've lost a bit of that advantage. Sort of the last example, we have 2 tenants, both up in our buildings at West Park Drive, Avery Dennison and Highfields Capital. Combined, they're 36,000 square feet. They both vacated in the 4th quarter of 2020. And they just said, the requirement's going away. We're moving out. We're not going anywhere else. And we're just, we're downsizing our staff, and the rest of the people are going to work from home. So those requirements just simply evaporated and went away. The last example is a company called Advice Systems. at 200 Freiburg Parkway. They, smaller tenant, 4,000 square feet, but it's another example of what's going on. They came in, did a 3-year lease. The lease was expiring, and they just got hit so hard in the pandemic, their business, that they said, we can't afford office space anymore. So they like the building. They said, we love it here. We would have loved to stay, but we're basically laying everybody off, and, you know, gonna have 1 or 2 people left at the company, and we're gonna just work from home. So that's kind of the last example. The reason I bring up the case studies is the market's changed so much with the tenants going virtual, the tenants downsizing, the tenants being impacted, and their businesses being hurt. It's created a high level of uncertainty with the tenants on what they're going to do, and that's translating into what are landlords going to do? What do we need to do to attract these tenants, to keep them? Zach and I talked about this a little bit earlier. In commercial real estate, it's different than other businesses because these tenants come in and sign maybe a 3 to 5 year lease, or maybe as much as a 10-year lease. The other sort of ripple effect of this is even the tenants that we're getting to stay, and I know Bob McGuire in a minute is going to touch on some of this with some of the deals we've done. They're saying, my lease rolled over in 2020, Caruth will sign a 1-year extension with you. So what that does is, if your normal lease is 5 years, about every year, about 20% of your portfolio rolls over. So these requirements just being pushed into the next year and the next year. So maybe next year it's 25 or 30% of our portfolio that's going to roll. And if tenants keep just kicking the can for another year or two, we could be faced with sort of the doomsday effect where 40 or 50% of your tenants all come up for renewal in the same year. And if at that time, a lot of them decide to move, you know, it can be pretty catastrophic. So these are all the things the landlords are grappling with, and I'm sure other landlords are seeing the same thing. So just a lot of uncertainty. We're having a lot of difficulty incentivizing tenants, because the way we do that is to try to find out what they want and find creative ways to give that to them. But they can't find, they don't really know what they want. So it's very difficult for us to try to appeal to something that they can't identify. So that's my presentation. If anyone has any questions, happy to answer them, and then we'll, or else we'll just turn over to Bob McGuire.
Well, let me summarize what I just heard from Brian. It basically said, Bob, we hired you and your firm to fill holes in our park, and we've got a lot of them. So I'm feeling a lot of pressure, and there are a lot of holes to fill. So there's a lot of work to be done. I hear you, Brian.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and Chris too. Zach, could you pull up the, thank you. Thank you again, Zach, Bonnie, Bob McGuire. I've worked in the commercial real estate business now for 24 years. I live in the area. I don't live in Westborough, but I live in the line, and I spend quite a bit of my discretionary money on your restaurants and other shops in town. So I love your town, and I appreciate the opportunity for being here. Before I actually ask Zach to switch the slide, I do want to say one thing. Chris Egan is very unique in a really good way. He has a long-term view in real estate, which is a huge benefit to the town of Westborough. I deal with landlords and tenants in all of these surrounding markets. There are not many Chris Egans out there. Most of them have a cycle of, let's sell these things in 3 to 5 to 7 years. And what that many times means is they're going to put Band-Aids on things. Whereas we've been fortunate enough to work for Chris and his company now for about the last 4 years. And I've seen him put a lot of money into all his buildings. And you don't usually see these things, roofs, HVAC units, but he keeps his buildings well maintained, and he's a great asset to the town of Westborough. So I just wanted to make that comment because he's a special guy and they're a special company.
Thank you, Bob, for pointing that out, where we realize how fortunate we are, and even just the development with Olympus and all the positive developments that are underway now come after many years of patience on Chris's part. And we realize we're fortunate to have had an owner that was in a position to be able to sit back patiently.
Yeah, and then obviously just talked about 2 more projects. I mean, those 3 projects, I'm sure every real estate investor would be envious to be involved with projects like that. So it's all good news, that is. Unfortunately, I'm going to share a little bad news. So Zach, if you could change it, I'd appreciate it. So I was going to go over 4 different topics, and obviously you can ask me any questions you'd like at the end. We'll go over some of the statistics. We'll go macro to micro. We'll talk about some of the demand. Most importantly, that probably you want to hear, what are some of the trends and what's going on post-COVID? Switch again, Zach, please. So when you look at it from a macro level, we count about 71 million square feet of inventory in all the suburbs. As you can see in the left-hand side of the slide, it's been negative lately. In particular, 2020, we've seen Verizon move out, HP, that's TripAdvisors, who put a big sublease on the market in Needham, and also Phillips, vacated a big piece of space up in Andover. And as you look to the right side, the rents for the overall suburban market are just under $28 a foot, and 20% vacancy, which I guess I'm going to say isn't bad. As we continue through this, you'll see it's actually pretty good. Most people would say that when a market gets to about 10 to 12% vacancy, that's about the time people will start doing spec development. You can switch the slide for me, please, Zach. Now getting closer to Westborough. Westborough is included in the 495 Mass Pike market. We have about 12 million square feet of inventory in this market. This also includes Framingham and Natick, which perform usually quite well. The positive number you see is Olympus plus some other negative absorption, whereas in 2021, I think that was HP and I forget what other company. It was Genzyme that vacated, I believe vacated One Research Drive, which was filled up later. But when you look on the right side, we're seeing now rents, the average rents for that 495 Mass Pike market. Now we're down into the low 20s, and the vacancy is now climbed up to about 29%. Next slide, please. The Westborough market, we're counting about a little over 3 million square feet of space. And the vacancy, the absorption is obviously high in the first quarter. The way we count occupancy is when someone actually moves in. I know that lease was signed probably a year and a half ago. Brian or Chris could tell you the exact date, but that's why we show a big pop in absorption in the first quarter, which is obviously good news. But when you look to the right, rents are down a little bit off the submarket that Westborough sits in, but the vacancy is as high as we see in the suburbs, 37%. And that goes back to what Brian was talking about, is tenants are leaving, downsizing, and it's a challenge. I mean, as it continue on here, and if you change slides, Zach, I'll talk further about what's really going on. Demand-wise, that's about 2.7 million square feet of demand for the entire suburban market. The 495 Mass Pike market is about 22% of that. The bread and butter tenants, I remember back when I started in the early 2000s, or I started in the late 90s, but in the 2000s, we did a little test on what the average size was, and it was probably 15 to 18,000 square feet, in that range. Most demand is now even far less than that. Most of our requirements are 10 to 25,000, but there's quite a few requirements that are even smaller. Switch to the next slide, please. Now this looks very exciting. These tenants total about 260,000 square feet of space, which is great. However, there's a story behind each one of these. Park Place moved from Marlborough, and there's a little bit of absorption there. They moved out of Marlborough and they had a company that they bought that they moved into One Research Drive. KPM Analytics was almost a neutral move. They moved from Milford. Now we get into the details here. Marvell moved from Marlborough. They were in 100,000 square feet. They just moved into 70. Malvern was in about 34,000 square feet. They moved into 24,000 square feet. They're at 2,400 Computer Drive. We actually did that deal pre-COVID. It was signed up, in essence, right as COVID was starting. You know, Work Central, nice people, but they needed a restructure just to do this deal. So, you know, it wasn't a win. This is a Cruth Capital tenant. This is a 1900 Westbrook Drive. We needed to keep occupancy, but Chris and Brian and their teams had to swallow hard to keep these guys in the park. Barrick and O'Connell, actually, they downsized by about 1,200 square feet. Really happy to keep that firm in the park. They're a great tenant. Lending Club, they did a one-year deal, and they were in more square footage. They gave back about 6,000 square feet. More or less the same thing with TDS. They renewed in 10,000 square feet. They gave back 5,000 square feet. So there's 260,000 square feet of absorption, but what these tenants were prior to these new leases was substantially higher. And that's why that 37% vacancy has grown to where it is today. If you could slide, thank you, Zach. Here's, in some sense, the 495 Mass Pike market hasn't experienced the sublease availability like the suburban market has, or more so Boston. Boston is getting crushed with subleases. Most recently, everyone knows now, BJ's has decided to move to Marlborough, so that space is just come on the market, but Babcock Power, Oracle, up in Marlborough, as well as Angio Dynamics, they're all shedding space. Prism HR is a company that's located down in Hopkinton. Those are the larger subleases in the market. But honestly, there hasn't been a ton of sublease space that has hit our submarket. Zach, if you could switch. Here's where it starts to get tricky. There is tremendous pricing sensitivity between what the tenants believe the market pricing should be. It's hard. It's a rock fight. Going back to the two slides back, talking about the tenants on the top, those leases were signed at what I would believe would be below market rents, and rents that were more in line with rents 10 plus years ago. Well, those are sub $20 rents, which is ultra aggressive. The other comment, I remember when we were doing leases at $18 a foot in Metro West, and the expenses were probably about $8 a foot to run the buildings. Brian can tell you, I bet expenses to run buildings now are almost $12 a foot, at least 10 and probably closer to 11 or 12. So the compression of what the owners are getting is eroded by all the expenses of what it costs to run a building. So it's hard to make the numbers work in this market. Ryan mentioned it, I've mentioned it. Tenants, there's so much uncertainty, tenants want to do shorter term leases. And then you get backed up when you do them. If you usually have a roll of 20% per year, now all of a sudden you get 30, 35%, 40% of your portfolio rolling every year. It just puts more pressure on everyone to make deals. So, but you want to keep occupancy. So you have to work with the tenants. They're your clients. You want to keep them happy. That's one thing, you know, Chris Egan has said to me, he goes, Bob, my job is to help companies solve their real estate needs and find a workable solution. They're very creative, and we're doing everything we can to keep the people we have. You know, with what has happened with the pandemic and COVID, people are trying to figure out what's their right size. Most people, we started here at JLL, I think we started coming back to work July, and that was 25%. But our office today probably has 15%. You drive through all these parking lots, and you might be 15, 20% of the people that are there. So, you know, short-term renewals we talked about. Even, I should say, the renewals, people want to do short-term. The new tenants, they want to do short-term. So a couple problems there, in some respects. And, you know, some people also want to go month to month, and that it's sort of similar to themes 2 and 4. They just don't know where they're going to be. They don't know when their people are coming back. And they're still trying to figure out how they build out their space. What has happened in the last, let's call it 6 to 9 months, maybe 9 months, we're seeing more tenants that are looking for first floor space and loading. Malvern needed loading, KPM needed loading. So luckily, some of the Westborough, or most of the Westborough Office Park buildings do have loading docks, and we do have some first floor space to offer. But that also is something that is a fairly new trend that we're seeing. Thank you, Zach. If you could go to the next one. Landlords in general, you know, the office sector is the most challenged right now. Life science and warehousing distribution is close to white hot. And a lot of people are looking at if they have an obsolete asset or a vacant asset, more or less in the 2-story range. It's hard if you're more than 2 stories. They're trying to reposition these assets. Some of the people in Marlborough, for instance, are trying to turn these things into GMP buildings or life science buildings. So that is something that's going on right now because there's such a demand for life science. There's 20 million square feet of life science development in planning east of 128. Just life science buildings, 20 million square feet. And there's demand that would fill those through 2024, almost into 2025. I comment about obsolete buildings. This is where it's a huge advantage to have Chris Egan on your side. People that are looking, they want nice things. They don't want to pay, but they want nice things. They want amenities, and they want to look at nice lobbies, and they want to make sure the bathrooms are clean and renovated. And that is it's something that landlords are trying to do if they have the capital. Sometimes their basis is too high, and that's a problem because they're not going to hold these assets long. But Chris has that long-term view and has done that. And he's gone through almost every one of his buildings in Westborough Office Park and others as well. And you could see 2400 Computer Drive. He put a new lobby on that, and that building's 100% leased now. I think at one point it was about 50% leased, Brian, correct?
Yeah, yes, it was actually lower than that. And we also had to put the loading dock on, which costs almost as much as the lobby.
Huge investments. The disconnect between the tenants and the landlords is pricing. The rents are coming down, but there's not a ton of data that proves it's come down 30% because they haven't. There's probably been about a 10% discount in rents, maybe a little bit more than that. And tenants, if we were making deals at $24, $25 a foot, tenants are thinking it's worth $15 a foot. It's not, and those deals just aren't getting done. And that's where you come to a standstill. Zach? So now that we're almost at post-COVID, let's put it that way. You know, part of the consultants are working with users to determine what is the new environment. You know, the hybrid environment is, are they going to work 1 day from home, 2 days from home, 3 days from home? That still hasn't been vetted out, but those are the conversations that are going on. And part of the reason tenants are struggling with making decisions whether to renew, how much space do I need? Spacing is, prior to COVID, people were trying to put 7 people, 8 people per thousand. They were, the word we used was densification. They'd give everyone a 6x6 cube. You'd be on top of everyone. They'd be low cubes. And that's how they were trying to save money on rent. Now with the spacing, I think people are going to lease as much space as they were leasing before to give people room to spread out. Cleaning protocols, Brian and his team, I can't tell you. He could tell you how many hours they've spent on coming up with these protocols, but it's another expense to the landlords. cleaning the bathrooms, cleaning the railings, making sure people feel safe when they come into the buildings. Health and wellness, tenants want the environment, and it's part of the recruitment and retaining people. They want to have places for them to get a sandwich. You know, Chris talked about walking trails earlier in Westborough Office Park. They have those there. Those are becoming important, more important now, between a fitness center, food service, walking trails. That's all becoming more important to employers to recruit and retain their people. And it has been, and I think it will still continue to be, a slow recovery until people get clarity on when they're coming back, how they're going to build out their space, and how many people they're going to put in their space. So that's just what I wanted to share with you all today. Happy to take questions. I really appreciate you allowing me to spend some time with you today. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob, Brian, and Chris. We really appreciate your sharing your experience with us. Does anyone have any questions? We could obviously spend the rest of the meeting discussing all that but I think you did a great job in providing the case studies and giving us some of the trends. So.
Bonnie, if I may?
Sure.
It's Fred Lenaro. So I throw this out to Bob, Chris, and Brian. If there's anything that we can do from a town standpoint, specifically to Zach, just let us know. Because that's obviously what this committee is about and what Zach's position is. So just keep us in tune. You guys all know us, but let us know if there's anything we can do from a town's perspective to help you out.
Thank you, Fred.
Thank you. We will. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
I think, Fred, the only comment I would make, and I appreciate your making that statement, amenities will help recruit more people to the town, and it's what they're looking for. They're looking for reasons to move into a place that is going to be a great work environment. You know, the Apex, I know it's not in Westborough, has made a difference up in Marlborough. And that is a big amenity center.
Thank you. And as Fred pointed out, we are, if it's helpful, Zach is available to join you in meetings with companies and then bring out the various town departments as needed if there are specific, requests that you have of us. But Chris isn't a stranger to any of us and isn't shy to bring areas of opportunity and concerns to our attention. So I know we'll be continuing to speak with you regularly. So you're certainly welcome to stay with us for the rest of our meeting, but we appreciate your time and understand if you want to step off. I know we have other topics that we'll be speaking to you about.
Thank you, Bonnie. Just quickly, you can share that letter I sent to you and Todd regarding the Westborough Climate Action Plan. I was asked to look at that as a businessman and give my thoughts to it. The two takeaways are, I strongly suggest the town not be a first mover on any changing bylaws or building code regs. Be consistent with the entire Commonwealth. It'll keep us at if we make a move before other towns do, it'll put us at a significantly competitive disadvantage in attracting new businesses and homeowners to town. And
Yep.
the second is to talk to our state delegation, and perhaps we can change this climate bill a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And we will be, have further discussion on the topic. We'll share your letter with the others. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. Good seeing you all.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I think we can move on to the next section in the agenda, which is our discussion and vote on finalizing the goal setting for the upcoming fiscal year. When we left our last meeting, I think we had aligned that there were a couple goals that needed some tweaking. And so I went back and tried to adjust these slides based on the feedback that we received at the last meeting. And so I'll walk you through what we have and what has changed, and then open it up for a little bit of discussion before hopefully one of the committee members can bring a motion to vote on the goals for the fiscal year. And then I know we are supposed to have a quick discussion on early thinkings on the outreach plan after this, but because we will be reviewing a grant application for the EDC grant at 4:40, I would suggest we kind of take as much time as we need on this and table that until our next meeting. Bonnie, do you agree?
Yes, let's see how your discussion goes and what we have for time, but that's probably, you might want to introduce it if there's time and we can discuss it further.
Sounds good. Awesome. I'll get going. So this, as you remember, we kind of took all the great work that Alan and the community had driven and tried to boil it down into kind of the four, kind of high priority and attainable goals for the upcoming year. And goal number one, I think we had all agreed was something that we could get behind, leveraging the LRP grant to tackle downtown revitalization. So nothing here has changed. And I'll move on to goal number two, which is creating and executing a comprehensive outreach strategy, which I kind of see as breaking down into three main buckets of work. One is the planning and leveraging CoStar to identify and prioritize external businesses for outreach, updating and maintaining our internal business directory, creating a comprehensive plan of what key messages we will be communicating to what types of businesses. And as those types of businesses change, how does the delivery method change for that as well? Then there will be some preparation required. So like updating our marketing materials, creating the Why Westborough video, updating our social media and website, encouraging greater viewership. And then there will be some things that are just pure play execution. So we had talked about leveraging our ambassador program to conduct outreach to Westborough's existing business community, mainly to share programs and opportunities that Westborough or other state agencies and nonprofit groups offer that could benefit those businesses, kind of going with an active value proposition. We talked about leveraging CoStar to conduct that regular outreach with high priority businesses, distributing a quarterly newsletter, supporting hosting quarterly outreach events, and then kind of regularly using our social media to stay in touch and communicate updates or programs and opportunities with our business community. I tweaked this a little bit based on some feedback that we had gotten. I don't think I had explicitly mentioned how we would be using the ambassador program before, and I think I added a little bit to social media as well. And then goal number three, I revised relatively extensively based on our conversations at our last meeting. I think previously when we had talked about the ambassador program, it was mostly anchored around conducting outreach to businesses to sort of surface their like growth and expansion plans and really try and identify how the town can help them in doing that. But we've since sort of pivoted to crafting an ambassador program around raising awareness and connecting businesses to programs and opportunities that they could really take advantage of. So trying to go at them with a clear what is Westborough offering to you type value proposition. And some of those, I guess, solutions or programs that we could consider pitching are things like our business assistance grant. The Small Business Administration just this Monday opened applications to their restaurant revitalization fund, mass save programs. I know that Kim and had hosted a webinar on that earlier this week. We'd also talked about the Worcester Regional Transit Authority's VIA rideshare service. And then also I think some of our larger corporate businesses are increasingly interested in trying to find ways to give back to the community and service opportunities. And so we can also try and connect them with those opportunities as they come up, or the groups that are kind of taking the charge on that, like the Rotary Club or others. And then questions about expansion and growth plans shall really be secondary, something that we'll only try and surface if the conversation kind of leads that way, or if the business once we've kind of got the business in with our hook of what we can offer. And so then there are a few action items I think that we'll need to tackle for this as well, like creating a new operating model to make sure that our meetings are scheduled and attended creating some meeting guides so that, we kind of have codified the different value propositions and talk tracks that you would bring to a different type of business for our ambassadors. We should also track the conversations that we're having and kind of the results that are coming out of them, and also work to recruit more EDC ambassadors. As amazing as Pete Allen is, I think he's probably going to need some help as we tackle this one. And then our fourth goal is around kind of assessing the structure and operating procedures for the EDC. And this one is, I think, one that I envision that we will kind of tackle in chunks over a period of meetings, kind of very small, digestible, bite-sized pieces, just looking at, things like our size and membership mix, subcommittees, officer elections, officer onboarding, member onboarding, community participation, and things like that to try and assess, what are we doing now? Well, is it right and aligned with our goals and priorities and mission? And if not, what do we need to change, if anything? And so then I also tweaked our proposed operating model for this annual goal setting to align it with the fiscal year, as we had discussed. So this meeting that we're having right now going forward will happen at the June meeting. Or actually, I guess I'll start from March. So, in March, we'll kind of start kicking off the community outreach work to try and source ideas for what, our community wants. Then in April, staff will provide updates on that outreach and some of the early returns. In May, I will come to the committee with a long list of goals, similar to what Alan had brought a couple months ago, for consideration. And then, the EDC can kind of discuss as needed and where to go with that, which I will then in June incorporate and present a final draft proposed goals similar to what we're doing now for the fiscal year. And then the EDC will vote on those goals together in a single vote. In July, I will then, so at our next meeting, I will try and bring a set of action plans or implementation plans for the approved goals to make sure that we have clear steps in processes in order to execute on those goals. And then in August and September and November and February, the EDC and myself will kind of pursue these initiatives to achieve and realize our goals. And any budgetary items that may be funded through warrant articles should go to special town meeting in October. So I think in this model, we have significant lead time to, one, create our action plans, identify what those items might be, and prepare the warrant articles to bring to special town meeting. And then all remaining budgetary items that cannot be funded through warrant articles will go to town meeting in March, and we'll kind of start our process over again. So then for proposed next steps, I want to give a few minutes to discuss and make sure that there are, everybody's feedback is heard and incorporated. But I would love to, vote on these goals. And if we do have to add contingencies to approval, so, X or Y needs to change in order for us to get behind it, I'm very happy with that. And I will, make those changes accordingly. And then at the next meeting, I will bring a set of action plans for your review, and we will work to implement those goals for the rest of the fiscal year.
Excellent. Great job, Zach. Fred, did you have something you wanted to add? No? Okay. All right.
I'm sorry, Bonnie, I didn't know.
Okay, I thought you were making a motion there. Okay, so Zach, at this point, are we prepared to?
So much. How you doing?
Good, thanks. Does anyone have any discussion, or are we prepared to vote to approve the EDC's goals for FY22?
I think Alan's trying to say something.
Alan?
He was.
I think he might not have realized he was muted, and he was traveling, so he might have been speaking to someone else.
Oh, okay, sorry.
But does anyone have anything they we'd like to have further discussion, or are we prepared to vote to approve the EDC goals for FY22 as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve as presented for discussion.
Okay, great.
Edinburgh seconds.
Okay. Sullivan, yes.
Leonardo,
Edinburgh, yes.
sorry, Leonardo, yes.
Edinburgh, yes.
Alexander, yes.
Williams, yes.
Steinberg,
yes.
Sorry, yes.
Robbins, yes.
Great. Is that everyone? Okay, very good. I don't know, Zach, if you want to give us a high level, introduction to the EDC outreach strategy, or if you prefer to move into the grant application, whatever
Bonnie,
works best for you.
I'll flash the page up because I think it would be good for me to get some directional feedback from the committee. I was planning a longer discussion, but I think it's fine to just kind of show where we're heading. And then if anyone has any quick thoughts, please, let me know. So this is the framework that I have been using to try and think about our outreach strategy. Is the way that I see the businesses that we will be talking to break down is that there are small businesses and then corporates and different industries for each of those businesses. And the value proposition that we will pitch to those businesses will change depending on a multitude of factors. One is whether or not you're a restaurant, retail, or manufacturing, or the other myriad industries that we have in town, or a small business versus a corporate, or even there's another layer to this, which is a business that exists in Westborough versus a business that we're trying to actually go out and recruit. And so given those various levers and how they can be pulled, we might have a different value proposition. We might have a different method of communication. And we might even have a different time of communication. The old adage, like, you never call a restaurant during the dinner rush, something like that might apply there. But I just wanted to give you guys this, quick sampling of how I'm trying to think about putting that together. And then just wanted to test the pulse of everyone on the committee to, see if this is going in the right direction or if there are any major blind spots. And then we'll see a more comprehensive action plan for this at the next meeting. Really quick, does anyone have anything to say? Or I'm also happy to take offline feedback as well.
I think this is a great start, Zach. I like the focus on value proposition and how we focus on our approach and what the time frame is. So those are, I think you're really getting to the key areas. Others? Scott, did you have something you?
I think it looks great. I think, just like you said, I think it's just the value of it's going to be very important, and it looks great.
Awesome. So keeping in mind to time, and let's move on, I think, to the grant application then. And if anyone has any other feedback, like I said, I'm very happy to take it offline, either in a meeting, phone call, or email.
Great. Thank you, Zach.
Do we have Angela? Oh, Angela, I think you're on mute.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Zach.
Hi.
Hey, Angela. Great to have you.
Thank you. Nice to see everyone.
So I think, Angela, what would be very helpful to the committee is you could take, maybe like a couple of minutes at the beginning to kind of, give everyone a little bit of a high-level overview of your business and, the project that you're undertaking in Westborough. And then I think some of the members of our grant review subcommittee can speak to your application after that.
Absolutely. I'd like to introduce myself first of all. My name is Angelo Setsos. Currently own a pizza place in Millbury and also wings and barbecue restaurant, The Coop. Pizza place is called Pizza Chef. And we've been currently open for about 5 years now. And I've been looking in Westborough probably for the last 2.5 years. And when this location became available, I absolutely fell in love with it. I knew this would be a great second home for us. And going in, to the space. It basically needs a total rehab from everything. So it's not just creating, I didn't want people to walk in and say, oh yeah, it's a barbecue place now, but it kind of still looks like Subway. It needs to be completely different. The whole space needs to just be a little trendier. I think it's going to really fit with what's happening downtown. I've been going downtown and just like having a coffee and watching everyone walk by. It's got some great foot traffic, and I really think we're going to be a great addition to what's happening down there. And we're really looking forward to being a part of the community.
Great. Thank you. Great to have your enthusiasm.
Thank you.
You're going to be watched closely being right next to Town Hall.
I know.
Yeah.
I know, right there. That's good. That's a nice little spot maybe to get away right after work.
Yeah.
I think many of the staff have a stake in this application. I might have to recuse themselves.
Bonnie, if I may.
Sure.
Two things. Angela, I think you're still there. You moved on my screen. Sorry.
That's right.
You were going to offer some kind of alcohol too, I think, maybe?
Yes.
Comment on that?
Yes. We're gonna be filling out a full alcohol license. Preferably, I wanted beer and wine, but that's not available. There's plenty of full alcohol available, so we'll be applying for one of those.
Okay, great. I just wanted the community to know that. So, from a perspective of this application, I think when we looked at it, we're confident it's going to be spending well in excess of anything we'd be granting him. He specifically is pegging his grant application to his new hood, so he needs a fire suppressive hood for his cooking operations. So that particular hood in itself is in excess of $36,000 or thereabouts. We also anticipate that Angela will be applying, hopefully and luckily, to our first storefront vacancy grant program. So that grant program carries a maximum of $10,000 towards it. So that's one of the things that we looked at with this grant application, and that's why it went forward at the $10,000.
Great.
So that would be a combined 20,000 between the state and then the EDC match at 10,000?
Correct. So it's not going to fund his whole hood, but it gets him a good chunk of it, so he can cook half his wings instead of the whole wing. Or something.
And that's just one of my hoods. I still have another hood that is going to be in the back. That will be for the smokers. So that's just one of the hoods it meets. So you can kind of get a scope of what's. It's going to be a lot just for a small space like that to get it up and running. And this definitely helps.
And additionally, I think it's worth noting as well for the committee that Angelo and his business will be piloting a new type of grease trap system with the town engineer. And that if, fingers crossed, everything goes as expected, could be very good for any future restaurants or similar businesses seeking to move into the downtown area.
Yeah, that's an excellent point that Zach's made, that the town hasn't done this, or at least they don't know that they've done it. It's certainly not in the last few years. So if this program is successful, it opens the possibility of other similar smaller restaurants to open up without having to do a full external grease trap, which would be another, some number of dollars to do that. The problem with downtown, even if he had the money and willingness to do it, it's the location, the physical ability to put the grease trap in, because the lots are so tight and the utilities are so tight. So he'd have a heck of a time trying to get an external grease trap on that particular property.
Yeah, I have to say that grease trap that I had that same grease trap in Millbury, the Grease Guardian. It's been working very well for me for the last 5 years. Every morning we go in, there's a grease deposit. We empty it out and put the container back in, and we regularly have it maintained and cleaned out. I do it about every quarter, and I think we're going to be on a more aggressive schedule in Westborough at first, and see from there. Baby steps after that.
Angelo, how many seats do you plan on having in the restaurant?
I plan on having roughly between 20 and 24 seats.
Will you have an outside patio area as well?
There, you know, I would love to, because there's a beautiful spot right next to that building, which I know is the town's space. I would love to incorporate something outdoors in the future. Absolutely, if it's available.
Great.
Are there any ideas on how to go about that space as far as using it, or not sure how to go about
Well, the short answer on that, Angelo, is that through the LRP, a local initiative that Zach is working through, that's one of the items we're hoping to bring up and to see how we can address that for the downtown businesses, how they can get some outside seating.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So something hopefully as a town we'll try to address.
Okay, that's great. That's a beautiful it's a beautiful area right there, right next to the building.
And it'll be even more beautiful with barbecue.
That's right.
Yep.
John Steinberg's window too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking I don't really know how to. Maybe after 5 would be perfect.
Great.
If there's no questions, Bonnie, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
I would make a motion that the committee grant $10,000 towards the payment of the hood, of the exhaust hood for the coupe.
Edinburgh seconds.
Oh, we got a question there.
Oh, yeah.
Madam Chair, if I may, I think there's more to the motion.
Well, I'd entertain an amendment to it.
Zach, do you have it up?
I can pull it up. Yep, 1 second. Do you want me to read it, Kim? Hello?
Yes,
Yes.
I think she's.
Okay. 1 second.
Just based on our last approval, we talked about having some more specific language in the motions because we also then use the motion in the actual contract that we've developed. So I think you'll see it when Zach reads it.
The committee moves to approve a $10,000 grant for the coupe to purchase an exhaust hood for their new location at 32 West Main Street, which had previously been vacant. The $10,000 award recognizes the coupe's expressed interest and acknowledgement. They will apply for the Massachusetts Vacant Storefronts Program and will be used for the municipal match. Funds shall be expended by December 31st, 2021.
I'd amend my motion to that wording, if I can do that.
Zach, can you send that to me? Can you email that to me?
Yes,
Edinburgh second. And Edinburgh seconds.
Okay. Sullivan, yes.
Leonardo, yes.
Townsend,
Edinburgh, Edinburgh, yes.
Alexander, yes.
Steinberg, yes.
Sorry, yes.
Brayley, yes.
Okay.
So is that 7? I count 7. 1.
I think that's because Jim Robbins and Christie stepped off. So that would be 8, 9, and I think, well, we certainly have a quorum, so are we all set with that?
Okay, yep, thank you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for joining us. Nice meeting you, and we look
Nice
forward.
meeting you all. Thank you so much
Thanks,
for
Angela.
everything. We look
You're in
forward to
good
being there
hands.
soon.
You're in good hands working with Zach and Fred.
Oh yeah, everyone's been great so far. Been very welcoming and helpful. Every department. It's amazing.
Best case, when would you anticipate we can arrive at the door?
I'm thinking September.
Okay.
Things have been a little challenging with COVID and contractors, and it's just I'm in a whole different. It's a little curve to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Well,
but hopefully for September, a lot of the work is already done. The menu is done, so there's a lot of things I don't have to do. So hopefully, maybe even sooner. We'll see.
Great. Good luck. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Great. Well, I think Jim had to jump off. He did want to just encourage us all to go to the master plan on the town's website to complete the survey if you haven't already. And other than that, does anyone have anything they'd like to share? Any new developments? Anything while we're all together? We have a couple of minutes.
Bonnie, I have a few items that I think Fred and I would like to share.
Okay.
I would like to announce that Starbucks is at 139 Turnpike Road is now open and has been open for a little bit over the last week or so. I would also like to announce that Monroe Tractor will be coming to 97 Turnpike Road, and we expect that they will be applying for an EDC grant at our next meeting. Additionally, we expect Launch Trampoline Park to move in to the location that it was previously vacated by Sky Zone. And then with respect to the LRRP, we also have a few key items to report. Is our outreach in our downtown community went really well. Everyone was very enthusiastic and eager to have their voices heard. For our business survey, we actually received 32 responses, which is a very high rate relative to the number of businesses that we have within the study area, which I think is right around or just under 100. That is also a significantly better rate than I think a lot of the peer communities in the program. So thanks to Pete Allen, our EDC ambassador, and the great work of Haggerty Consulting and the EDC team, and Karen Chapman at the Quarter 9 Chamber, we were able to get, and Dave Bagden as well, the community advocates, some really good participation. And then additionally, we will be having a stakeholder meeting, our second stakeholder meeting, to announce the results from the diagnostic phase that we concluded this week. And that meeting will be next Thursday at, I think, 9:30 in the morning. And then regarding the climate action plan, as per our discussion at the previous EDC meeting, Jim Robbins and I will be meeting with Pete Dunbeck next Thursday to discuss what type of outreach we will be doing on that, and how and when it will be done.
Great. Very good. Thank you, Zach.
Zach, if I could just suggest one thing relative to the meeting with Pete Dunbeck, I think you and I discussed a little bit offline. If you could pursue and sort of get some feedback. I know they did a lot of outreach, and they talk a lot about it, but it's unclear sort of what the results were and what the demographic and numbers were for people who attended their outreach in some of their meetings. So it might be good to get some input and feedback on that so that we can make sure we're not duplicating efforts that they've already done with the same results.
Great idea,
we
John.
really want to be hitting a different market, I think.
Yeah, I will start the conversation out that way to, kind of aligning on what outreach has already done. And so, that the conversation is really focused around what do we have to do and how are we going to fill the gaps if there are any.
And as Chris Egan mentioned he did send a letter to, addressed a letter to Todd and to me, and we'll share that with you as well. As one business owner's, contribution and thoughts. Great. Does anyone else have anything else they'd like to add? Okay. Our next meeting will be Thursday, June 3rd, 3:30. At this point, we do have on the agenda the EDC outreach strategy. And as Zach mentioned, we are anticipating Monroe Tractor to come in for a grant application. And we will, I'm sure as in the weeks ahead, there'll be other items that we'll be updating everyone on. So Zach, thank you for all of your work and jumping in and getting so engaged in such a short period of time. You've made great progress already. So
thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the weather.
Do we need a formal motion to close?
Yeah, I think we need to make a motion to close the meeting. I'll make a motion to close the meeting.
Bernardo seconds. Oh, Scott.
Well, I was just going to say, guys, just I missed the last meeting, but I had a really good conversation with Zach. It was very enthusiastic. Just very excited, to see his enthusiasm as well. So I think with summer coming on and everything opening back up, I think there's so many opportunities for Westborough, and we discussed those. So I'm very excited about this. So I think the sky's the limit. So I just had to add that. So apologize.
Great.
Thank you, Scott. It means a lot.
I'm sorry, who made the motion and who seconded to adjourn?
Todd made the motion. I think Fred seconded it.
Bernardo seconded.
Thank you.
Sullivan, yes.
Alexander, yes.
Bernardo.
Edinburgh, yes. Edinburgh, yes.
Einberg, yes.
Townsend, yes.
Sorry, yes.
Really, yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Take care, everybody.
Okay.